Oh, yes. Welcome back, my brothers and sisters, to the God Squad. We are so excited. Great episode in store, and let's kick this thing off. My name is Keith Giles. I'm one of the God Squad 3, the Trinity, the Unholy Trinity. I'm an author. The Jesus Unseries books are on Amazon, and go check those out. Jesus Untangled, Jesus Unarmed. And I am joined by my friends and co-hosts, December and Dylan. Say hello, introduce yourselves, and let's get going.
What's happening, everybody? It's your blackest friend, December Rose, with the God Squad, author and spoken word artist, and overall uniquely exquisite vibe on the God Squad. Again, thank you for joining us again. You can, of course, find my books on Amazon, and I'm on everywhere on social media. You see how my name is spelled? That's how you spell it. You can find me. All right, what's up, Dylan?
Hey, I'm Dylan Neighbor Cruz, the tattooed theologian and your favorite theological rabble rouser. You can find my books on Amazon, and my blog is tattooedtheologian.com, where I sporadically write things of theological import. And I'm thrilled to be here tonight to take on church.
I just have to also, before we jump into our opening topic here, point out that I am the only one. One of these things is not like the other. And it's not what you think.
It's not what you think.
Yes, look at that. The God Squad, rocking the God Squad merchandise, December and Dylan both wearing the blue hoodie. I have yet to receive mine. I need to go in and get mine. Hopefully next week I will have my God Squad merch. And if you don't have your God Squad merch, you need to go to, I think if you go to godsquadpod.com, the link is on the Facebook group there. Be sure and grab it. I mean, it's not just hoodies, there's shirts, there's mugs, mouse pads, stickers, etc. Go and check it out. Get yourself set up. And
we will be donating a portion of 25% of the profits from merch sales to various nonprofits. Mine's going to be Mennonite Disaster Committee. I don't know about December and Keith yet, but that's who mine's going to be.
Yeah, maybe next week we can. Maybe next week we can make an announcement about what those are going to be and get that going. And I'm being told by my producer that comments are not working for some reason on my stream. But if you head over to Matthew DiStefano's Facebook stream, it should work. There's also I think we're on the Choir Facebook stream as well. So you can do it on Facebook as well, or on the Choircast Podcast Network on YouTube or Instagram. If you follow God Squad on Instagram, we're also streaming there as well. So hopefully one of those places comments will work. And I apologize because right before we jumped on, like 20 minutes before, I went in and clicked and checked all the settings and made sure that StreamYard was set up, and it didn't work.
I feel like it was.
So yeah, there we go.
Right thing.
Yeah, I thought it was going to work. Anyway, hopefully, I do see some comments popping up, so they are coming in. That's good. So we'll get to your comments and we'll get to some guests. If you do want to join us, there's a link also on God Squad Pod, or also on the places that we're streaming that you can click on and join this actual call live. If you have a question, you want to stump the squad, or a question or a comment, please only join if you actually have a question or a comment. Don't just hang out backstage. You're not allowed to do that. So if you try that, our producer will boot you. If you join, please let us know what your comment or question will be. All right. So I think the topic that we were going to talk about tonight, we have a couple of things. One, we just need to address it because we talked about this last night on John Fugelsang's show in our segment. In fact, it pretty much was the entire segment. We spent most of the time talking about the yet another school shooting, this time in Georgia, outside of Atlanta.
With an AR-15 once
With
again.
an AR-15, yes.
Once again.
By a white teenager, sadly, male. So, this thing just keeps happening. We felt like it was important to address it because I know a lot of people are still wrestling with it. And I definitely want to hear from December and Dylan and what they want to talk about it. But something that John said last night, he said, that he wasn't used to it yet. It was still bothering him. I said, man, I hope we never get used to it. I hope for as long as this happens, and I hope it's not going to keep happening much longer, but for as long as it does keep happening, I hope it keeps breaking our hearts. It has to. It's going to take that, I think, until we eventually will do something about it. But yeah, December. Dylan, what do you guys want to say about it?
I had a thought yesterday when I was reading about it, and I remember hearing a piece of scripture one time, so I looked it up, and it's from Habakkuk 1:1-4, and it's the prophet's complaint. It says, "Oh Lord, how long shall I cry for help and you will not listen, or cry to you violence and you will not save? Why do you make me see wrongdoing and look at trouble? Destruction and violence are before me, strife and contention arise. So the law comes slack and justice never prevails. The wicked surround the righteous, therefore judgment comes forth perverted." And right now, the wicked at places like the NRA and the GOP and the gun show dealers and the arms dealers and are allowing these things to happen. This is entirely preventable.
Yes.
The only kinds of places where this happens routinely are places like Honduras and El Salvador, where there are violent gangs who have guns everywhere. And there was a guy last night who said more guns is the answer. According to the most recent data, there are more guns per capita in the United States. There are 120 and a half guns per every 100 people. So we're the only country that has more guns per capita than people. So more guns is not making us more safe.
No, it's not.
And it's a horrific tragedy that the young man clearly had a hard life growing up that I read about today. And yet his dad felt like it was a good idea at Christmas time to buy him an AR-15. And there's just a disconnect there that I can't quite wrap my head around at all.
Yeah.
And I think in these situations too, this may end up possibly being another situation where the parents are held criminally accountable.
Yes.
Was it the I can't remember the name of the other, were the first parents to be held criminally at given time. I think they're given like 10 years or something. I can't remember how much time. This is not that many months ago for their son because they made the gun available by not making it unavailable. And then they ignored him. He was telling them that he was having mental problems. He would, and in that situation, I also thought that the school had some kind of liability there too, because they kind of ignored him too. I'm talking about that other situation, not this situation. In this situation, there's so many failures that I could see, but the failures are a result of the lack of common sense laws that in this situation, because I cannot see, unless someone has some information that I don't have, he did not illegally possess this weapon. I think that we learned yesterday that there is no minimum age in Georgia to own a gun.
Right.
And this makes no sense to me.
That's right.
There's a minimum age for consuming alcohol. There's a minimum age for buying cigarettes.
Driving
you can't even buy a lottery ticket.
Yeah.
But you could buy a weapon that can kill as many people as possible in so much time. At some point, we have to realize the lunacy of the situation we're in with guns. Mm-hmm. There's no rationale. There's no logic answer that makes sense for why we're here and why we remain here, why we keep being here. It makes no sense to me. In the speech following the speech that later on that afternoon from VP Harris, she said it doesn't have to be this way. And you know what? The bottom line is it does not have to be this way.
That's right.
And as much as people want to say, well, we can't stop all, we could probably minimize it, but we can't stop all. It's never going to. Here's the thing about it. If you save even one life, that's worth whatever regulations we put in place. If you save even one child, it's worth, I promise you, to the family, it's worth whatever we put in place. It's worth that legacy, that bloodline, that child's career, their dreams and their goals and their children and their grandchildren. Because every time a child dies in the classroom, a generation dies with that child. An entire generation dies with each person that is taken by these guns.
Yes.
Multiple generations.
Yes.
Who could that child have become?
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
And my research yesterday, I learned that between 1884 and 2016, Canada had 19 total school shootings.
Mhm.
From 1884 to 2016. But in the United States,
We're
just
already over that.
2018 to 2024, we've had 205.
Yeah.
That is a moral failing on the part of the politicians who are in the pocket of the NRA. And the NRA has a membership that's like less than 3%
Yes.
of the total US population, and yet they are holding these politicians in thraldom
That's right.
by paying them off.
That's right.
And they're in cahoots with arms dealers. There's absolutely no doubt.
Oh,
that
yeah.
the
No.
NRA
Gun
is
manufacturers.
I'm
cahoots
sure
with
gun
arms
sales
yes.
are spiking today. I'm sure of it.
Of course.
Oh, I'm
After
sure.
every, because they go through this whole thing like someone's going to come snatch their guns after every mass shooting.
That's right. Which never happens.
It never happens.
But they use
Every
it as a
Democratic
way.
president is coming to get your guns. Never happens.
Right. They
And
will
still they
tell-
believe it.
Yeah. Politicians will say to us, oh, let's not politicize this. Don't use it for some political gain. But then the NRA will turn around and use it for their own gain financially to actually sell more guns and ammunition. There's a poll. Actually, I gave you a graphic. Our producer gave a graphic. We talked about this last night. This is funny because it's a Fox News poll. And I think it needs to be said. Fox News, their polling is actually really accurate. And quite often goes against what they're saying on the air, which I think is funny.
That just
but
makes me laugh.
It's funny, yeah. But their polling is really good. So I have a graphic. We can pull that up. Now, yes, this particular graphic is from April of last year. But these numbers
Probably
haven't
higher
changed.
now.
Yeah, it's probably higher now, especially after this shooting. But according to this poll, background checks for guns, 87% of Americans. Now, again, this isn't Democrats. This isn't Republicans. This is just Americans across the board, Americans. 87% in favor of background checks for guns. 81% in favor of enforcing our existing gun laws. 81% in favor of legal age of 21 to buy every gun. 80% requiring mental health checks. Yes. 80% flag people who are dangerous to themselves, like red flag laws. 77% require waiting 30 days, a 30-day waiting period before you buy the gun. And so, yeah, the American people want this. And it's times like this, in spite of what they tell you, it's times like this after shooting, after children have died, after teachers have died, innocent people have been shot. It is the time, because this is when the American attention is on it, when there's emotion surrounding it, when people are really upset about it and are willing to say, yeah, let's finally do something about this. And we really do need leadership that's willing to take advantage of this opportunity and pass some kind of legislation. Again, we're not even saying, we're not going to knock on doors and confiscate all guns. We're just saying, because in this case, as you were saying, December, this is what's so insane. Guess what the minimum age is to buy an assault rifle or any rifle in Georgia? Trick question. There is no minimum age. Anyone can buy one at any time. A 12-year-old, right? You can just go buy a gun. You got the money. You walk up to the counter, slap it down. You walk out with an assault rifle. This is insanity. This is not a solution to a problem. This is the cause of the problem that we are currently seeing right now. People are dying. This is not a joke. This isn't even, if people say, let's not politicize it. This isn't politics. People are dead. People are dying. This is real life. And we can stop
what bothers me is that, and I want to put this comment by Becky Payne up real quick, because when I finish this, I want to comment on that, where she says something else is also happening.
That's right. Yeah.
If you can put that up, and let me say something real quick, and then I want to comment on that, because that is true. It bothers me that every time this happens, and I mean every dang time, they say, well, it's not the time to politicize it,
Yeah.
You even saying that is political.
That's right.
Because it's policy that will change this. So why isn't it the time? This is the exact time for us to be talking about what to do about this. And talking about a solution and trying to work your way toward a common solution that makes sense, that the consensus of America is that they want, that is not political.
Yeah.
That's humane.
Mhm.
It is humane to work toward a solution that will keep our children from being in fear of and being gunned down in classrooms. That is not politics. That's humane. That is the
Yeah.
humane thing to do
Yes.
for your population. They are making it political. I promise you, them bullets don't care if you vote Republican or Democrat.
Yeah.
Bullet
right.
don't care.
That's right.
They are making it political. And on this note, Becky says, something else is also happening. Yes, we have too many guns, but what happened to our youth? I was around loaded weapons and never thought about shooting anyone. We definitely need gun control laws, but we need to help young men deal with their issues. I want to comment on this because if you look at the statistics for who is doing this, it is young white men. Something is happening. I don't know what's going on. I'm going to tell you a little funny anecdote real quick. And for those of you who are familiar with March of Dimes or have had a preemie, you may have heard this term that I'm about to give. Don't get offended by it. This is actually a term they use in the medical community. So I had both my babies were born premature. My daughter Olivia was born 2.6 pounds. She was born 11 weeks early. She was born at 29 weeks, and she spent a good little amount of time in NICU. And one of the nurses, the doctor too, but the first time I heard it was the nurse. The nurse said, "Oh, your baby girl, she is gonna do fine. She is strong." She said, "Little black girl babies have the strongest survival rate coming through NICU." She said, "Little white boy babies have the lowest rate. We actually have a term for it." She said, I promise you, this is the term. It's called wimpy white boy syndrome." I was like, "What?" She's like, "That is what it's called." If we have nurses or care people or medical professionals, let me know if you've heard that term before. If you have preemies, and you can Google it. It's called wimpy white boy syndrome. And it just means that for whatever reason, they have a lower survival rate of coming through NICU for whatever reason. There's many factors, but that is just what it is. It's a term for a statistical reality. And in the context of this, I'm wondering what is going on, because if just dealing with numbers, this is not necessarily a racial thing. This is a mental health comment that I'm making. What is happening? And maybe somebody can answer this. What is happening with the radicalization of young white men? What is going on? Because of those 200 and what's the number you gave us, Dylan, of the number of school shootings?
205.
Remove all the shootings that were a result of either white men or young white men out of that number, and I wonder what that number reduces to. Probably something else.
It's still going to be, it's going to be a big number still.
Yeah. I'm talking about mass shootings in schools or theaters or whatever.
Yeah, those are just school shootings, not just mass shootings where the Gun Violence Archive considers any shooting that has 4 casualties, whether injuries or death, as a mass shooting. These are 205 shootings in American schools.
Yes. My question is, what is happening? That is a good question, Becky, of what is happening. There you go. There's a visual for you. What is going on? What is behind the radicalization of our youth period, or the violence period, but specifically this demographic? What is happening? Does anybody have any commentary on that? What is going on?
Why is it specifically white people? White men?
White men. John Fugelsang made a comment last night and it tickled me, but it was true. He said the only people I trust with AR-15s or whatever is women. None of the women are doing.
Women carry them. Yeah.
In general, not even a specific race. He just said women aren't out here shooting people like that. So
yeah.
What's your thoughts about that? What is happening?
Well, I wrote a post a few years ago about white Christian terrorists, and I did a lot of research for this article. Actually, I'll share it in the God Squad Facebook group. I'll look it up and post it in there. It was fascinating because I looked up all the last mass shootings, and not just mass shootings, but even going back to like the Oklahoma City bombing, like Christian terrorists, people that have done terrorist acts, and they're all white, and they're all male, and they're all Christian. And that's the other thing that I think is troubling. Yes, in that graph you showed, there was white men, but it's white male Christians. These are people who identify as Christians. So I think what I would say is, I think we have this, again, this is a problem with Christianity in America. We not only have a rise of Christian nationalism, we have a flavor and a brand of Christian nationalism that is violent, that uses violent rhetoric, that talks about using violence to bring the kingdom, or using violence, to defeat when you demonize the enemy, right? When you dehumanize your enemies, then it justifies any amount of violence, any amount of, you can commit atrocities because, well, it's
God has your back.
Yeah, exactly. I have to do this because I have to overcome evil. In other words, you become a monster to defeat a monster. And I think that's part of it. I think it's mixed up with this certain brand of evangelical Christian nationalism that breeds. Again, we have to acknowledge this. Again, most of the time, these are white Christians. And that there's something about that faith that isn't leading them to follow the Prince of Peace. It's convinced them that to follow Jesus, you gotta be a patriot, you gotta wave the flag, you gotta have your guns and your Bible, and that all those things go together. It's one big package.
Well, I made this point last night, and I think it bears repeating. The ethos in America since the 19th century has been that resorting to violence is part of what it is to be an American. And I say that because Charles Dickens came over in the 19th century and he commented on it in his book, American Notes, and then he satirized it in Martin Chuzzlewit. And if you continue to perpetuate that pattern and say, this is the spiritual ethos of our country, that we can carry guns, we laud people who carry guns. We make a big deal about the American West and how it was bought by the gun and all of these things. And then you add into it the bad faith actors of the 21st century in the social media era and in the era of instantaneous communication and disinformation and misinformation and white grievance and the mental health crisis that we have in this country, then it's going to be, and then you add on top of that damn near unfettered access to weapons of war and put them in the hands of kids whose brains have not developed yet. Your brain does not fully develop until you're fucking 25 years old.
Yeah.
Now, I did hunt when I was a teenager with a single shot 22 caliber rifle.
Yeah. And
I had to load it one time, shoot one time, and if I missed the rabbit, then I wasn't eating that rabbit.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So there was no 60 rounds in a second or in a minute kind of thing. There was no virtual M16A2 available to me. But Tracy Pearson, who is also on the show, she made a point last night that some of these kids do get mental health services and it still didn't stop them. Nicholas Cruz apparently was on the radar and had mental health services and stuff like that. But he was still able to get a gun and all that ammunition. And that's the thing. If there had been a red flag law.
That's right.
Just like the kid in Uvalde that shot up and killed 19. If there had been a red flag law, that kid's not buying enough ammo to start a fucking war with.
That's right.
So I think that we have to stop with the fetishization and the idol worship of guns.
That's what it is.
There are other countries where they have lots of guns, but they don't have this problem.
They don't have mass shootings going on, especially in their schools.
Canada has lots of guns. Right. There's a lot of great outdoors up there where people like to go shoot shit. Yeah. But they've only had 19 school shootings.
That's a great comment,
over 100 years.
Yeah.
Bill Fenstermaker says, pretty sure it was the gun that made all the major world religions into the major world religions.
Yes.
Probably right about that.
That's my favorite comment of the show right there. That was
I
great.
mean,
Thank you, Bill. Pretty sure it was the gun that made all the major world religions into major world religions. I don't know about all of them, but I know about Christianity. Christianity
For
was
sure.
advanced by the sword and by the gun. That's what
Yes.
colonialism was all about, right? If you watch, there's some great movies that will illustrate that. There's a great movie called Silence by Martin Scorsese that talks about that. And before that, there was a movie called The Mission with Robert De Niro. And in both of those cases, what you can see is the governments, these nations, I think Spain and France are the main ones. But back in the day, one of the major ways that those nations tried to colonize third world countries was by sending missionaries
Yeah.
and Christianizing those natives, and then warming them up to your culture through the religion, so that eventually the army marches in. And yeah, that's exactly right.
It's like
That's right.
Forrest said something too. He said warfare is in the evangelical Christianity's jargon, and that is so true.
That's right.
Warfare.
Yeah.
You
Onward,
go to
Christian
any
soldiers.
Trump rally,
Yeah.
you're gonna even hear it.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, Julie Jones, can you put her comment up there? She said, OMG, I'm a NICU nurse for over 30 years and have used that euphemism. Yes, that's true. Wimpy white boy syndrome for my entire career, only with my nurse cohorts. It truly is a thing. Love you all. Continue the good work. I'm so glad somebody else heard that. Because I thought somebody would think I was making that up. That is what the nurse told me. She was like, your daughter is probably going to be fine. Young Black girl babies have the strongest statistical survival rate coming out of NICU. And so, yes, I'm so glad we had somebody to affirm what I'm saying. I didn't make that up. I promise. The bottom line is there is a mental health crisis. The bigger crisis is that our government as a whole, not for the lack of trying by some of them, is not doing a damn thing about the gun crisis nor the mental health crisis. Not enough.
Yeah.
We got money for everything.
That's right.
We got money to send guns to Israel, but we don't have money for behavioral health counselors and therapists for schools here. Now, listen, I know we're sending money all over the place. We're aiding all kinds of nations. We're doing all kind of good stuff in Africa and every other place. And that's because we did wickedness all over the world that we keep trying to redeem ourselves from. But we got money when we want money. When we want money for something, we meant that shit. You understand? There's money when we want it. When we bailed out the banks, 2007, 2008, or whenever that was, we found some money.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We can find money for what we want.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a matter of priorities.
There you go.
Exactly right.
And that's why Dr. King said in his amazing speech Beyond Vietnam, A Time to Break the Silence, that it's not just throwing a coin to a beggar.
Right.
It's dismantling the system that makes beggars possible. It's
That's
not just telling people that gun violence is bad. It's dismantling the system that makes gun violence possible.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's what we're asking our politicians to do. I wrote about this in volume 1 of Theological Musings because of the SCOTUS decision, the Supreme Court decision about assault weapons bans in New York. And it is a crime against humanity what the Supreme Court and what the GOP has been doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's it. It's crimes against humanity.
That's what it is. And I want to keep it all the way real and keep it 100. There is, when you mention the guns and everything, depending on who's talking, certain conservative networks will come back around and they'll have something to say like this. What about black on black crime? What about the crime in Chicago?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
every time. Chicago, every.
But they got one city and one state. You could put a bingo card together around every mass shooting, not to trivialize this. But I promise you, you can check the box of what they got a script.
Yes.
Of what if they don't got a script, they're just all on one wavelength mentally. The truth of the matter is guns are a problem in urban minority areas. That is a fact.
Yeah.
We're not going to act like that's not a fact. There's different reasons for that, but it's the bottom line is lives are being lost.
Well, those guns those guns in Chicago do not come from Chicago, because Chicago and Illinois do have strict gun laws. The problem is neighboring states do not. So you can go to Indiana, you can cross the border into other neighboring states that have that have much easier gun laws, like Georgia, where there is no limit. You can buy a
None.
gun, just put the money on the counter, you can walk out with a gun. And so that's what people are doing. They go to other states, they buy the guns, they bring them back in. It's Chicago. That's what's happening. And,
Like I said,
and
they have to create a boogeyman. And that's so true.
Yeah.
Because the black on black thing, that's not a thing. Okay. 90% of violence or 85% of violence that happens against a person happens by who's in close proximity to them. That's not a thing. There's white on white,
it's
black
only
on black, brown on brown.
because they're geographically located together.
Yes,
Right.
that's right.
It's not a thing. Okay. When violence is perpetrated against someone, it's usually by someone that's close in relation relative to their space, location, whatever to them. That's just what normally what happens.
Yeah,
But
they don't call it white on white crime.
Justify.
Yeah, they never say white on white.
No,
and it's a dog whistle. We know it's a dog whistle.
That's right. Yeah,
it's a signal that says black people are inherently more violent and dangerous than us, and that's why Chicago is so bullet hole riddled and shit like that.
And that's why you should look over this young white dude over here that just killed 20 students, because you know that's really not a problem. What you really need to do is fix that issue over there in Chicago.
Right, exactly. It's defining. Totally. Yeah, so this has been a great conversation. Before we jump to I know we wanted to talk a little bit about Kamala Harris appointing Jen Butler to that task force, but or whatever it is, it's not a task force, but we'll talk about that in a second. I do want to remind people though, you can jump on the call. We would love to take your call. If you want to stump the squad, if you have a comment or a question, please jump on there. I posted in the comments on the GodSquadPod.com, on the Facebook group, on my Facebook channel as well. We're also posting at different places. So if you want to jump on, please do. We'd love to take your call before we jump into our segments. And
this is a great comment. I just wanted to highlight it before we move on. There is a particularly pernicious aspect of white Christian family culture that excuses, overlooks, and deflects accountability and consequences from sons. It's not healthy for anyone, including the son. And I agree with that. I just wanted to read that because I believe that is true.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. And then Becky Payne has a comment. Said, like you mentioned last night, this was on John's show. So thank you for listening to last night's show as well. The young man was not killed by the police. I think John Fugelsang said that's how he knew the shooter was white. When they
absolutely.
They took him into custody without firing a shot. Yeah, because if
they just talked to him, he's holding a gun, an AR-15, and they just talking to him.
4 people. Hey, buddy, you want to drop that gun? Yeah, okay. Yeah, and if he'd have been black, he would have been dead before he turned his head.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, that's.
And
right.
I mean, I don't take anything from them. Here's the thing that people need to understand too. I don't lament being able to take somebody alive. I don't lament them being able to talk somebody down off the wall. I don't lament them being able to negotiate with somebody that's in the middle of a mass shooting and being able to take them out alive. I don't lament them coming in and be able to take somebody that just shot up an entire Bible study. The problem that I have is when it's black, when their skin is black or brown, that shit don't happen. You're not asking no questions. You shooting to kill and asking questions later if you ask a question at all. What is it about the mindset of cops? And it don't matter what the race is, but of course, you know what predominantly it is, but it doesn't really matter. That says, I owe this skin the benefit of the doubt, even when they're holding a weapon of mass murder in their hand and have just laid bodies all around themselves. I owe them the benefit of the doubt to see if I can save them. But if it's me, if it's my son with some tea and some Skittles, I don't know that boy shit. He's a threat. I was in fear for my life.
Yeah. They took Dylan Roof.
That's
to
what it is.
Burger King.
They took him to Burger King because he's gonna be hemmed up for a while. He might be hungry.
Yeah.
Okay. But there's no systemic racism though, if you let them tell it.
Sure. Before we jump into our segments too, we wanted to just give a shout out to Jen Butler, Reverend Jen Butler. She was recently named by Kamala Harris at her campaign that she is going to be, let's see, I think what's the complete title?
The National
Faith and Justice.
National Faith Engagement Director.
There you go. National Faith Engagement Director for the Harris-Walz administration, which is really cool. I got to meet her. I did a panel with her a couple of years ago at Wild Goose. It was a lot of fun. So she's a really great person. She previously actually had served as chair of the White House Council on Faith and Neighborhood Partnerships under Obama in 2015 and 2016. And she served alongside Rachel Hill Evans, that's really sweet, as others, Bishop Carol Baltimore and Reverend Tracy Blackman and other faith leaders. So that's really cool. Congratulations to her on that. It's really, again, I think we said this before. I think we said this during the DNC. It's refreshing to see Democrats acknowledging the Christian community that does support some of the values that they stand for. And
because for a long time they have just ceded that faction of the country to the Republicans.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
As if we don't have strong family values and principles. They just ceded that whole argument and platform to the Republicans for so many years, but Donald Trump blew that up for them. He destroyed the platform. They don't even have a platform anymore. It's just whatever Donald Trump wants. They don't have a platform anymore.
And there was a religious news service article about Reverend Butler's appointment. And one of the things that really struck me about that is, she said, I have a large network of people that I can bring into this because of my previous work. And B, it's truly ecumenical. She's got counterparts that are reaching out to the Jewish community, counterparts that are reaching out to the Muslim community and the Mormon community in Arizona. So it's truly ecumenical, which is like the United States. The United States has an ecumenical faith base and people without faith, and that's perfectly all right. I don't give a fiddler's fart if you're an atheist, but if you're an atheist who's a jerk, we got problems, right? Just like if you're a Christo-fascist, I got problems. Treat people right. I don't care what your beliefs is between you and God or you and no God. I don't need to convert anybody.
I want to read a quote. She was interviewed by Sojourners magazine, and I love this about her. This is what I think makes Jen Butler so special. She said, despite working on a number of progressive policy issues over her career, Butler has held partisan politics at arm's length, saying that she intends to challenge the Democratic Party as much as they challenge the Republican Party. She says, quote, never will we be beholden to one political party because that is idolatry. She said her thinking hasn't changed at all. And she says, you don't want to be beholden to anything but God and your moral values. If I see the Democratic Party running astray from that, I will criticize them. If they ever become a party of violence and mayhem and chaos like the Republican Party has become, I would pray to God that I have the courage that so many never Trump Republicans have had. Stepping out into the crowd is an exceptionally hard thing to do. And God bless her for that. Well, that's what we need. Is someone who's going to come in and say, okay, yes, thank you for this. But again, my allegiance is to God and not to a political party. And if I see you doing something wrong, I'm going to call you out. So I'm standing behind you for that reason. That's beautiful.
Yeah, so that's a good pick by the Harris-Walz campaign.
Yeah, very good. Well, I think it's time we should probably move into, I don't think we have any callers yet. If we get some in between segments, we'll get to them. But for now, I think we can go into our segments now. Dylan, are you going to kick us off with our fundamentalist fuckwittery? All right.
Yeah. And this week, the fundamentalist fuckwittery is brought to you by Eric Metaxas. And for those who don't know, Eric Metaxas is a really well-known evangelical writer. He graduated with a BA in English from Yale, so he's a pretty good writer. He's written for VeggieTales, and he's written some lots and lots of children's books. And he went all in on Trump and kind of tarnished his reputation quite a bit. And now he's all on TV Trinity Broadcasting Network, and he's platforming people like General Mike Flynn. There's a video I'll put it in the Facebook group later, and Charlie Kirk and Jordan Peterson. And for those who don't know, Jordan Peterson believes in race science. He believes that science proves that white people are inherently more intelligent than black people. So Eric Metaxas has got some issues. he tweeted one time that Jesus was white, which no, and he,
It's hard to come by in that region.
exactly.
Yeah.
And he recently said this about the current presidential election. And after this quote, Matt, you can bring up the video. I promise you that if Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are elected, they're going to come after pastors and people of faith like you've never seen before. Tim Walz is a Lutheran.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris is a Baptist. She's got a pastor who has been her pastor for multiple decades.
Yeah.
Yes. Documented.
So
yeah.
I can.
She didn't just find him. Like she didn't just turn black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the same thing was said by Donald Trump about Joe Biden. He said they're going to take the Bible and all this stuff when Joe Biden got elected. Joe Biden's a devout Catholic.
That's
so,
right.
Matt, if you could bring up the video and just play the whole thing, it's about a minute and a half long.
I'm convinced that the American church has arrived at a significant moment of truth.
We are only 75, 80 years removed from 3 separate regimes that killed 60 to 70 million people intentionally.
The parallels with where the American church is now to where the German church stood in the face of the Nazi regime are unavoidable and grim.
Churches need to understand really what Marxism is, which is to destroy the church, to destroy the word of God.
So if you capture the seminaries, you capture the pastors, you capture the laity, you capture the soul of the world.
Christianity is not just about saying Jesus loves you and then going to heaven one day, but that there's a war that's raging.
The church is weakening, which is why Marxism is ascendant in America today.
This is the hour of the American church.
God.
Okay.
I have I've read all of the Gospels because you do that kind of thing when you go to seminary.
Yeah.
I don't remember anywhere where Jesus said, "This is a war."
Yeah. What is he talking about?
Yeah, I don't know.
I agree with the first part of his statement. The gospel is not about saying a prayer to go to heaven when you die. But then he just made a hard right turn and said, it's a war. Like, what the hell?
So that one of those people was Charlie Kirk from who founded Turning Point USA. Charlie Kirk is absolutely 100% a white supremacist. He has made that very clear multiple times on his show and his social media platforms and all of that stuff. So one of the reasons that I picked Metaxas is because there's going to be a Dietrich Bonhoeffer movie coming out soon by Angel Studios, the same people that brought you that ridiculous debunked movie about human trafficking with Jim Caviezel, whatever it was called.
Yes.
So I don't know that Eric Metaxas had anything to do with this movie. But one of the things that Metaxas is most known for is his biography of Bonhoeffer. So I did some digging today to find out, what do Bonhoeffer scholars think about Eric Metaxas's biography? And go back to in the video, he talked about the American church is where the German church was. Mm-hmm. So keep that in mind when I read this quote. Where did it go? Fritz Stern, a Bonhoeffer scholar, said this: Eric Metaxas demonstrated an amazing ignorance of the German language, German history, and German theology in his Bonhoeffer biography.
Wow.
Another Bonhoeffer scholar said it just should be called Bonhoeffer hijacked, because what Eric Metaxas tried to do unsuccessfully was turn Dietrich Bonhoeffer into an American white evangelical strongman of the Mark Driscoll type. Mm-hmm. And one of the scholars that I read today said, well, what Metaxas doesn't realize is, A, that's not who Bonhoeffer was, but B, that's exactly what the Third Reich did to Christianity in Germany while they were taking over.
Mhm.
They tried to take anything that looked feminized or Jewish and remove it from Christianity to have this Christian strongman thing within the German church.
Mm.
And so Metaxas tries to make Bonhoeffer seem like if he were alive in 2024, he would definitely be a right-wing evangelical Christian.
Ugh.
And every Bonhoeffer scholar that I read, engaged with today, said this was absolute nonsense. Dr. Jeffrey Pugh, in a video that I watched with Trip Fuller, said that he's not a scholar. Period. Calling him a scholar is just wrong. So, and Bonhoeffer, Metaxas tried to embody this after being invited to the RNC speech by Donald Trump in 2020. A Portland activist, I think his name was Anthony Harrington, rode past the proceedings and yelled, "Fuck Trump." So Metaxas ran up behind him and sucker punched him in the back of the head, knocking him off of his bicycle. Very Christ-like behavior.
Oh yeah, so yeah, such a Bonhoeffer thing to do.
Right. And all because somebody had the temerity to make a disparaging comment about his makeup wearing, high heel wearing, orange spray on tan hero.
Yeah.
That was all that it was.
That's right.
And so
dumb.
So Metaxas is not, he's not credible. And what I hope doesn't happen, because his book was a bestseller, and now that this movie's coming out, it may sell again. So he's probably a pretty wealthy man. And like I said, he platforms a lot of white supremacists. I've heard him say things that were definitely anti-Semitic in the video with Mike Flynn, when he talks about globalists and elites and George Soros. If you hear a right-winger say globalist, elite, and George Soros in a sentence or a paragraph, you know that they're using anti-Semitic tropes. And just one more quote from another Bonhoeffer scholar. She says that his portrayal of Bonhoeffer's theology was a terrible simplification and at times misrepresentation. So he hadn't done the reading. He has no idea what Bonhoeffer actually stood for. And yet he indoctrinates people. Matt, if you want to bring up the slide for the children's books. Now, remember, he used to write for VeggieTales, but now he's writing things like Donald Drains the Swamp and Donald and the Fake News, Donald in the Wall, and portraying Donald the Caveman as Donald Trump. And the truly ironic thing about this is that Donald Trump basically has the intellectual acuity of a caveman and often acts like a caveman around women.
Yes.
So somehow, subconsciously, I think
there's something so perverse about this too. Just looking at it, especially that middle one. Like, whose children are reading this?
Yes, exactly. Donald and the Fake News. Yeah, Donald.
Can you imagine?
I think on some subconscious level, he knows that Donald Trump is a caveman, but he's pushing this, really right-wing narrative about America and freedom, and that America is the spear point of freedom in the world, and that there's no other freedom in the world, and all this stuff. And for all of those reasons, and I'm sure many more, Eric Metaxas is this week's representative of fundamentalist fuckwittery in America today.
That's a hot mess.
Thank you.
That's just a hot mess. These people have hijacked the same way he hijacked what's the name?
Dietrich Bonhoeffer.
The same way he hijacked Bonhoeffer is the same way they hijacked Jesus Christ for their own motives and agenda. These people are so separate, are so far from Christ in this day. You can't get further from Christ. The further you can get from Christ is to claim that you're an atheist. And I don't believe atheists are that far from him, to be honest. I believe they just aren't buying the version of him and God that these folks are selling. You know what I'm saying? So the Christianity has become so void of Christ himself And so, and the thing about Donald Trump is he's just exposing them. These people didn't become this way just because Donald Trump became president one day.
That's right.
This is them being who they are and having enough freedom in their mind to be who they are out loud because they have a champion in this guy.
Yeah. And Metaxas is everywhere. He's on CNN sometimes. He's, I saw him on Newsmax claiming that Israel's not committing genocide and ethnic cleansing. And if they were, he would be the first one to stand up and say so. My dude, you don't know that history either. And that's part of the problem. He's so influential in evangelical circles that I looked up Goodreads today, and the majority of the reviews for his book were overwhelmingly positive.
Oof.
But these people, that's because they don't know.
They don't know
the people that are reading it don't know anything about the subject, and they want to be comforted by thinking that this really famous theologian who was murdered by the Nazis is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the insidious part about this. And like I said, he blocked me on Twitter when I said nobody takes you seriously.
Yeah.
Because scholars
apparently he takes you seriously though.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So if you're listening, don't buy his stuff, please.
Yeah.
He's got enough money, and he platforms white supremacists.
It's funny how critical race theory, which is a deep dive and study into the history of this country and the impact of racism in this country from the past through to the present and potentially into the future, is considered indoctrination. But children's books about Republican president,
yes,
that's not indoctrination.
Right.
Yeah.
A college level course that you have to choose to take and pay for. That's indoctrination. Because they aren't teaching critical race theory down in the middle school. They want you to believe that. But this children's book about Donald, that's not indoctrination. These people are the epitome of hypocrisy.
Yes.
Projection and hypocrisy.
Yes. Projection, yes. The things that they're accusing other people of doing are exactly what they're doing.
And just before I wrap up my segment all the way, I want to make it very clear that I'm not Jesus and I'm not perfect. And sometimes I get it wrong. But what I am attempting to do is make a distinction between the thoughts, beliefs, and actions that I call fundamentalist fuckwittery, and the people who are engaged in those thoughts, beliefs, and actions. True. I'm not Jesus. And sometimes it is a subtle distinction.
Yes.
But here's the thing. I wish Eric Metaxas would repent and stop platforming white supremacists. I don't want any harm to come to the man.
Yeah, exactly.
I just want him to stop harming others with his vicious rhetoric about Marxism being is what's fueling LGBTQ equality, or critical race theory is being. It's a legal theory, my guy. Look up Derek Bell, for the love of God. It's a legal theory. They're not teaching this in seventh grade.
They're not teaching it in little kids. It's exactly right.
So I've heard some people criticize me and our show because we're just like the other side.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how.
And I don't believe in the myth of redemptive violence. Somebody asked about our beliefs on violence earlier. I believe that that's a strong temptation.
That's right.
But I'm a pacifist.
Yeah.
And I am an imperfect follower of Jesus who has PTSD, which gives me a certain amount of anger issues. But I don't want harm to come to any of these people. Right. Even Donald Trump. Now, I may lampoon him for wearing fucking orange makeup and having a comb over that takes 4 hours to do and all that kind of stuff. It's because he is awful to other human beings.
That's right.
Yes.
So that's my sermon. Like it or don't like it, but there is a distinction between what I'm doing and what these folks are doing.
Yeah,
That's right.
that's right.
When you snatch the name, the money, the title away from Trump, these people, these so-called Christians, evangelicals, whoever they are, whether they identify as Christian or evangelical or not, they are just supporting a perverted jerk, a bully,
Yeah, at the
a
end of the day.
clown.
Yeah.
If you take away his name and take away his money and take away his title, none of them would look at this man twice on the street. He's
Mhm.
a rambling clown.
Yes.
Oh my God! Did you hear what he had to say about childcare today?
Oh, that was.
Oh Lord, I
yeah,
don't even know.
I was tempted.
I'm
I was
trying to
tempted
get over
back
what he
to that.
said the other week about talking about I have your whole body or whatever he said.
Yes. Yeah. Today they asked him a question on a panel, and he gave the most rambling, nonsensical
I mean,
answer. It was a
It was
non-answer.
verbal diarrhea.
It was.
A man who
that's
cannot
what
even
you
give
do.
you one scripture out the Bible.
Oh yeah, he's
Right.
not a
Not
Christian.
even one. And the
He's
one
not a
scripture he
Christian.
tried to quote, as soon as he said 2 Corinthians, everybody know he
Corinthians.
don't read the damn Bible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
But this
too.
is their guy. Their
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
Holding the Bible upside down in front of a church.
Yeah.
This is their
Uh,
clowns.
Yeah. Well, December, I think it's time for your favorite segment here. This motherfucker.
This motherfucker. Well, I'm not going to spend too much time because the hour is getting late. But I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this motherfucker and this topic that this motherfucker has got me on tonight. And this motherfucker this week is Peter Doocy. This is the senior White House correspondent for Fox News. And he asked Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre a stupid ass question a couple days ago. And you got to understand that just even asking the question lets you know how unserious these people are.
Mhm.
Just even asking the question, sitting in the White House press room, having very limited time to speak, understanding that whatever question you ask is going to be on national and international news, and your obligation is to inform your viewers of whatever's going on in the earth, the truth, to bring value to your viewers, understanding that that's your role from the perspective of what's going on in the White House. And this is the question that you ask. Go ahead and roll the video, and you're going to find out why this is this motherfucker today. This is Peter Doocy, senior White House correspondent for Fox News, a question he asked press secretary a couple of days ago.
Since when does the vice president have what sounds like a Southern accent?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well,
I mean, this is.
she was talking about unions in Detroit using one tone of voice.
Is this something that
Same
you think?
line
Okay, Peter.
that she used the same line in Pittsburgh, and it sounded like she at least had some kind of a Southern drawl.
I mean,
What?
do you hear the question that do you think Americans seriously think that this is an important question? They care. You know what they care about? They care about the economy. They care about lowering costs. They care about healthcare. That's what Americans care about.
So
That's what they want to hear.
this is something.
They care about. Your colleague just asked me about what basically we talked about, went back and forth about democracy and freedom. That's what they care
I
about. I'm not
agree.
even going to entertain some question about the press. It's just hearing it sounds so ridiculous.
Well, but hearing it is
The question I'm talking about, the questions is just insane.
that how she talks in meetings here?
I'm just Peter. We're moving on. We're so moving on. Go ahead, Anita.
We're running back real quick. See the Chiron that's under there. It says White House briefing. You don't have to play it. It says White House briefing amid Middle East tensions and economic woes. Okay, you can take that down. That was what they were coming off of. And we didn't start, that's right. We didn't start the video at the beginning, but if you start from the beginning, they're talking about Israel and they're talking about what's going on there and they're talking about the hostages and all this. And they go from that. That was his question before. That was the conversation that they were having before that to this. a question about whether or not VP Harris, whether Kamala had some kind of accent when she was giving a speech in Georgia somewhere. These people are unserious.
Yeah.
These people are unserious. But what I want people to think of more is code switching is normal.
Yep.
Not just for Black people, but especially for Black people.
Yeah.
But it's not isolated and exclusive to Black people. I promise you, everyone on my feed code switches depending on the environment that they're in. I promise you that you do not talk to your wife the same way you talk to your children. That's a code switch. I promise you, you don't even talk to your children the same way you talk to your pet. Well, you might. You could. You come here, baby. You know, then you might. I don't know. I promise you that your language is more relaxed at home than it is in the workplace. I promise you. Beth has a comment. She said, as a pastor's kid, she's a PK in the house. I've been an agile code switcher since about the time I learned to talk. And I've seen everyone code switch when talking to the pastor, AKA my dad. Yes, girl. Yeah. Girl, yes. Especially in the church. Code switching happens, especially in the church. I promise you, the voice, the intonation, the words, okay, the exhortation style that any pastor uses in that pulpit is not how they talk at the house when they're out from behind that damn microphone. I promise you that. As a former pastor and as someone who's been around pastors and preachers of all stripes, all denominations, code switching is normal. It's a fact of human life for survival and otherwise.
It's pattern recognition.
Go ahead.
It's pattern recognition.
Thank you for that. It's pattern recognition. Look, Osterman says, as a master's in linguistics, I can confirm this is a major point of sociolinguistics. We all do it depending on, we all do it depending on the audience. There is nothing spectacular about code switching. The problem I have with this motherfucker, Peter Doocy, is that there's a reason why he's bringing this up in a press conference at the White House concerning Kamala Harris. There's also for the same reason they brought it up with Barack Obama. If you remember, they had the same shit.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm going to sound more Black around Black people than I sound around y'all. One, I'm more comfortable. Two, there's shit I'm going to say that you ain't even going to understand.
Yeah.
Just because of culture. Of course, I talk differently at home than I talk in the workplace where I'm at. I work for an engineering firm. I promise you, when I'm sitting in a conference room and we're in a conference and somebody says something that I think is stupid. By the way, I work with great people. I don't think, but if somebody says something off color that I think is stupid, I promise you, when it gets around to me, I'm not gonna say this motherfucker. I promise you, that's not what's gonna come out of my mouth. If I have to respond to something I don't like in the corporate, it might sound something like, "Well, per my last email, what I," you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Excellent.
I had informed you before that if you don't submit the request by 4:30, that is technically the next business day, and you may not get a response until the following business day. In my mind, that sounds like, motherfucker, I told you last week when you tried that shit. Keep pushing. Something's gonna fall through the motherfucking crack. And when you lose $1 million, don't blame my Black ass. That's what's happening in my mind.
Yes.
What's coming out of my mouth is we may look into the process and procedures and protocol for a cutoff time for submitting proposals at the end of the day, so that we don't have any loss of revenue as a result of those things not being able to be handled in a timely manner. I just code switched in your face.
That's right.
Everyone does this. There's nothing new about it. It's not an outlier. It's not some fantastical thing. It's not even a Black thing. It's a human thing. Listen, I'd be willing to bet my whole paycheck and find somebody who could verify it, that even animals code switch.
Yeah.
I promise you, all them furry motherfuckers don't even talk to each other the same way. I promise you that shit. It's a crocodile, it's an elephant, it's a lion, tiger, and bear somewhere that's code switching. Okay, it's human nature.
Yeah.
The only reason it's coming up, and the only reason he took that time, that very limited moment of spotlight that he has at a White House press briefing to ask a Black woman about the intonation and tone of voice of another Black woman is because he is that motherfucker.
He's a racist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What you got, Dylan?
Well, if I talk to my sister back home, people are going to know that I'm from Texas the next day. I haven't lived in Texas in a long time.
Yeah.
But if I talk to folks back home, my drawl comes out a lot more. When I lived in England, some guy thought I was from England because I was around British accents all the time. I wasn't trying to sound like a British person. My brain just said, oh, this is the situation. We're in England, so you're going to sound British.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? I listen to George Strait. I'm not British. You know, but my brain and a lot of people's brains will pick up accents from where they're at.
Yeah.
And Kamala Harris has lived all over the freaking country from what I understand.
Right.
So
that's right.
In her brain,
yeah,
sometimes it might sound a little Southern. And Peter Ducey's a Nepo baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
His dad also works for Fox News.
Oh,
That's how he got that gig.
That's how he got the job. That's right. Yeah. No, I've done the exact same thing. I was born in Tennessee. My mom and dad are from Tennessee. When I was really young, we moved to Texas. And I grew up in Texas, right? And so I don't have a Southern accent. But when I was a kid, we would go back to visit, for a couple of weeks in the summertime. And I'd be hanging out with my cousins, playing with my cousins in the backyard and all that stuff. And on the drive home, me and my mom and dad would be in the car talking to each other after spending, several days with the family. And we'd be talking like this. Hey, could you pass me the Cheetos in the back? Which one you want? You want them or you want this thing? And all of a sudden we would go, wait, what are we doing? Like we'd hear our voices. Like, what? Wait a minute. But it's because we had been spent all this time. You just slowly, you fall back into that pattern. And all of a sudden you're talking like you got this accent again. But it just, you can't help it. It's unconscious. And yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah. And again, like somebody had a comment earlier on that it's basically just an excuse. Like, hey, let me ask this Black press secretary a question that gives an answer that I hope allows me to continue to be racist. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What did he even expect from that? You got to ask yourself, what did he even expect from that? She was like, boy, please.
He's playing off. He's playing off what Trump did when he did that the Black journalists thing. He was at when he said, for the longest time she was Indian. All of a sudden she's Black, and so
somebody had to look into that.
This idea that she's pretending to be Black all of a sudden. And that's what he's doing. That's what
he's pretending to be orange every day. But we ain't talking about that. That's not a problem.
That's right.
And somebody mentioned the Rhodes Scholar who is in Congress. That's Senator Kennedy from Louisiana. Yeah. And he went to Oxford. But if you hear him talk, he sounds like Foghorn fucking Leghorn.
Yes.
And he's the guy that was reading the book about the blowjobs and stuff. Do you remember that crazy thing? Yes. And he was doing it with those super thick Louisiana accent. So yeah, that dude code switches.
And plays toward his base.
Not sound like that.
Yes.
And when he's trying to be his Republican from Louisiana, he sounds like a hick.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Awesome. And this too, this right here.
Nobody asked him about it.
And they ain't gonna ask him about it. It said they can't imagine a woman being Asian and Black, not half Asian and half Black. Their brains are limited. It's not complicated.
Yeah,
it's really not. And their brains aren't limited. What's limited is their morality.
Yeah,
and their ability to not otherize anything that's not white male Christian Republican.
That's right. That's right.
Because the whole argument goes away if she's white.
Yep.
Whether she's woman or not. The whole argument goes away if she's white. It's always the othering. It's always the other. It's like Kendrick Lamar verse. They're not like us.
Yeah.
They're not like us. It's always the othering of us.
I got to say, between now and the next God Squad, there will be a beautiful debate. And I cannot wait.
Lord,
for
we
Trump
thank you. Ain't God good?
Kamala Harris.
Oh, that's right. That's coming up. That shit's going to be.
Yeah.
I'm watching that thing with popcorn, Skittles, M&Ms. I mean, I tell you, I'm about to be in front of that thing like
it's
like I'm at the movies.
I don't want to miss a second of it. It's going to be just so good. Oh, I can't wait. And so we'll talk about that next week for sure. That'll be a blast. All right. Well, I think we're done. I think it's time to get to our good news, and then we can wrap this up. The good news for this week. Let me just do a little bit of a setup here. So the good news for this week is, I want to first, before I give you the good news, like most evangelical Christians, before I give you the good news, I'm going to give you the bad news. The bad news is, as we know, that what happened on January 6th was because Donald Trump perpetuated the big lie. And he insisted that everybody in his party also go along with the lie. And the lie is that he won the election, that he actually won the election, and that somehow, mysteriously, Joe Biden stole the election. Not only did Joe Biden somehow find a way to, change the voting in all these different states so that he would win, he also managed to somehow get control of Republican, many of them Trump-appointed judges in different states who heard the objections, like so to see the quote unquote proof that the election was stolen, and every single one of them threw it out, threw the cases out because, I mean, the reality is they threw them out because there was no evidence. But under the big lie, it's because they're all somehow secretly, somehow controlled by Joe Biden. Joe Biden, by the way, who is both a criminal mastermind genius who has been planning these things for years and pulls it off expertly in ways you can't even possibly catch him from doing it. And at the same time, Joe Biden is a bumbling old man who shouldn't be in office.
Mental decline.
Both of those things are true. Anyway, but this big lie is the point. The big lie is also what led to what happened on January 6th. The crowd that assembled in the Capitol were fueled up in anger because of the steal, the stop the steal, many of them carrying signs saying stop the steal. Donald Trump told them that what was happening was a crime, that their votes were being stolen, their voice was being taken away, that they needed to fight. And that's exactly what happened. That's what we saw that happened on January the 6th. And Donald Trump, all the way up to that point, continued to claim that he won the election and that he should be the president, and Joe Biden was not a legitimate president. And then long afterwards continued to tell that lie over and over and over again until just this week. Here's your good news. I got a clip. Let's pull that up. We have a clip, and you may have seen this, but it's worth playing it again. Donald Trump was interviewed on, I think it was Lex Friedman. Is that his name? He's kind of like a Joe Rogan wannabe guy. I've watched a couple of his shows because he had a couple of good guests. And anyway, Donald Trump is doing like a podcast tour, I think, and ended up on this guy's podcast. And just notice what he says. And there's a setup here also on the clip a little bit before, but then you're going to hear what he says. Let's go on and play the clip.
Just months before the 2024 election, Donald Trump has finally admitted that he did, in fact, lose the 2020 race to now President Joe Biden.
And I became president. And then the second time, I got millions more votes than I got the first time. So I was told if I got 63 million, which is what I got the first time, you would win. You can't not win. And I got millions of more votes than that, and lost by a whisker.
Lost by a whisker. We should note, of course, that Donald Trump's lies about the 2020 election fueled.
So there you go. I love that. So yes, what if you notice though, his logic, what he's trying to say, right, is like, I got more because I was told if I got 63 million, which is what I got the first time, that he would win, that he couldn't not win. He can't even say the word lose. That I couldn't not win. And he says, and I did. I got millions more votes than I did last time, and I still lost by a whisker. And this is what he doesn't understand. You don't win or lose compared to how many votes you got the previous time.
Right.
You win or lose depending on how many votes you get as compared to other people in the same race. And yes, the truth is that he did get more votes than in the second one than he did in the first one. It's just that that was still millions less than he needed to win, and he lost. But he admitted it. He says it, and he lost by a whisker, but he lost. And it's good.
And that's not even true that he lost
No,
by
it's
a
not by a
whisker,
whisker.
because when he
No.
beat Hillary, he said it was a landslide.
Right.
And Biden beat him in that same fashion, 306 electoral votes to 232.
That's right.
So
That's
it's a landslide when he does it. It's a whisker when Biden did it.
Oh, yes, exactly. Yeah, thank you. That's a good point. Well, Chris, we know this about Trump, right? He also claimed that his crowd size for his inauguration was bigger than Martin Luther King and or Obama. And we can see from the aerial, like, no, that's not even close. It was actually pretty sad. So yes, he lost the popular vote. And then thank you, Bill, for saying this. He lost the popular vote both times.
Both times.
Both times. That's right.
Just by a big margin and then a bigger margin.
So, we do, and what now? It's like 60 something days. I don't know what the exact number is, 61, 62 something days before the next election. And I got to say, I really hope everybody comes out. I hope that Kamala Harris wins by a freaking landslide. I hope it's a historic a win, just over the top. That there's no possible way to claim. Yeah, no question. But anyway, that's the good news. Donald Trump on camera admitting that he did lose, even though he lied about how he lost. He lost it more than a whisker, but at least admitting he did.
More than a whisker. Definitely more than a whisker.
I
Like I said, when it was Hillary, he said it was a landslide.
Lots of whiskers. More whiskers than I have even. Yeah.
Definitely more than that.
I had not seen that. I thought you were going to play the clip where he admitted to election interference.
Oh, yeah. That was a different one.
He did that too.
Yes, that one he admitted when I had every right to interfere, he said. So he admitted he interfered and then just says he had the right to interfere. Yeah. That's a crime.
I want to say this on the record. I want to say this on the record. So when it happens, we can roll the track back.
Yeah.
When Trump won, nobody thought Trump was going to win. The polls didn't say he was going to win. The best polls said Hillary was going to lose. Was going to win, and then she lost. Nobody thought Trump was going to win. I don't even think Trump thought he was going to win. The poll won on accident, and then was like, "Oh shit, this happened." You know what I'm saying? And the reason for that was there were silent Trump voters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they weren't polling for him. They weren't out with signs in their yards. They weren't waving the flag, hollering and screaming all this tin hat foolery. But they went in that booth and they voted for Trump. They probably didn't even tell their families about it. You heard that term, silent Trump supporters.
Yeah.
I'm saying this on the record so we can run the track back in 2020, in November 2024, and then 2025 when she's inaugurated. There's going to be, in my opinion, this is my opinion and my projection, okay, that there is going to be silent Harris voters. People who are sitting around accommodating these conversations about Trump, maybe even tuning in, not challenging their family members, not challenging their church members, don't have signs out in their yards, but aren't giving you any indication that they would ever vote Democratic. They agree with the policies, understand the policies of the Republicans. They agree with the policies of Trump, but they abhor him.
Yes.
They cannot stand him.
Mm-hmm.
And they cannot tolerate the destruction of the Republican Party and the value system that he has completely dismantled on the Republican side. Yeah. And they are going to go into that booth when no one is watching and vote for Harris or write someone in. Either way, they're not voting for Trump. I believe there's going to be a wave of folks who are silently supporting Harris. They will not come out of their mouth and say that they voted for her. They won't confess that to anyone.
That's right.
But they will cast their vote for her.
That's
I believe that.
Yeah, Liz
I think
Cheney said she was
Yeah.
going to vote for Harris.
Liz Cheney said
I
she
was
was gonna
shocked by
vote
that,
for-
to be honest.
That was beautiful. Well,
Yeah, I mean, she's a pretty horrible person.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know of her as a person. I certainly can't go on her policies, but I didn't expect her to be vocal about it.
Well, but I will say, you know, again, I'm not a Republican or Democrat really. I don't want to play those games, but you know, and so I don't agree with the policies of people like Mitt Romney or Liz Cheney, but I will say I respect them for
They're
having
decent
the
individuals.
integrity to say this guy is a criminal, this guy is a danger, this guy is a traitor, and he has no business. And Liz Cheney has said that he has no business getting back into the White House again. And so I you know, it takes a lot of courage to go against your party, to do it vocally and publicly, and to say, not only to say, as she has said many times, that Donald Trump is a danger, but to say I'm voting for a Democrat. Like, damn, that's amazing.
That is pretty damn amazing. That's some pretty good fucking news too, by the way.
Yes, that is. That's a lot of good news. That's right.
All right.
Yeah, this was good. So thank you everybody for listening. Another great episode. I had a blast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like the show, please like and subscribe on our podcast. It comes out tomorrow. It comes out every Friday. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, Amazon, Apple, all that, wherever you listen to podcasts. So like and subscribe to the podcast. Be sure and catch us on Wednesday nights at, what is it, 10 p.m.? 10 p.m.
10
Eastern
p.m.
time on John Peterson's show, his Sirius XM
Progress Radio 127. Tell me everything.
That's
With John
right.
Fugelsang.
Yeah, that's right. And then next Thursday, right back here on GodSquadPod.com, streaming on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. And
y'all gotta be here next Thursday. That's gonna be after the debate, right?
After the debate, yeah, that debate's going to be. We got to talk about
It's
that.
gonna be lit.
It's going to be.
Y'all gotta be here next Thursday.
Can't wait. All right, thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the God Squad.
Peace.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, good night.